How do you do? Jen and Cam feel it would be unkind to present this program without a friendly word of warning. We are about to unfold our true crime podcast, a podcast of lifelong friends who seek to examine crimes which were committed without reckoning upon God. The discussion will be frank, and the subject matter will be of a grim and violent nature. I think it will thrill you. It might even horrify you. So, if there are young children listening, or if you feel unwilling to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are you?
I'm Excelanto. How are you?
Oh, I'm holding in there. You know how it goes.
I do. At least it's a nice day today.
It's a great day.
It's a great day in the neighborhood, sort of.
Yay. This past week was a busy week for me. We had my husband's birthday, my stepmother's birthday, my daughter's birthday, Mother's Day. I'm ready for no sort of day. Just ready for...
You ready for Monday?
It's called Blur's Day. Today's Blur's Day. Tomorrow's Blur's Day. It's all a blur.
Tell me about it.
Well, what do you have for us?
I always say it's a humdinger, but this is a humdinger. I'm telling you.
Sure it is. Prove it.
It really is. You ready to go?
Yep.
I think I can speak for you and I and most people that, our home is our safe space, right? Like you feel safe here, you get home after a day of work or running errands or whatever, and you unwind, you relax, right? You can finally breathe. Everything's good, everything's safe, right?
Yep.
Well, today's case not only is a brazen attack inside your home, it's about a man who would actually watch you for days before his attack. Stalking, kind of knowing. And let me just say right off the top, this is a pretty graphic episode, and it includes rape and rape of a child.
Oh, okay.
Just a little warning. I didn't put a whole lot of details in there because that's terrible. Nobody needs those details. But just in case, that could be a bothersome trigger for people. So today's case takes us to Allentown, Pennsylvania.
And we're living here in Allentown.
That's why I paused there, because I knew you'd do that. So in addition to the Billy Joel song, Allentown is also, and I did not know this, but you probably do because your husband's from around those parts, is the location where the Liberty Bell, which was originally known as the Pennsylvania State House Bell, was successfully hidden from the British during the American Revolutionary War. It is August 5th, 1992. It's just before midnight when 29-year-old Joan Burkhart returns home to her apartment after a night of having fun with her friends. She had went out, met a couple friends for dinner, drinks, whatever. Now, Joan worked as a nurse's aide, but she was planning to go back to school and become a full-fledged RN, right? Registered nurse. She had lots of friends, and she enjoyed helping people. She had always thought that was her direction in life. She was outgoing and loving, and, she wasn't the type to be considered high risk for a crime or anything like that. And when she got home this evening, she felt immediately like something wasn't right. Right when she got into the apartment, she had noticed that there was a fan that she had purposely left running due to the heat. It's August, and the fan wasn't running. It had been turned off. So she's kind of like, So she's looking around, and she was like, something wasn't right. Something was off. So she went to go see where she had a little area where she kept some emergency money. Not a lot, like $40 or $50, and it was gone.
I think that's common.
Money was gone. So that scared her enough to call police. The police arrived to her house, and she explained to them about the missing money, the fan, and, it seemed like her dresser drawers had been messed up. It wasn't obvious. Like, if you and I walked in, we wouldn't notice it. But, if that's where you keep your undergarments and things like that, it was kind of rustled about. It was like somebody was looking for something. So the police officers take her statement, and they did a quick sweep of the house to make sure nobody was in there. It was clear. So whoever was in Joan's apartment earlier was now gone. Officers tell her to keep a few lights on and make sure all the windows and doors are locked. Sadly for Joan, this would not be the last visit from a stranger in the dark. It's now August 9th, 1992, when a call comes into the police station from Joan's apartment complex. Not her, but her apartment complex. This time, it wasn't Joan, but Joan's neighbor. The neighbor stated to police that there was music being played extremely loud in Joan's apartment. And the neighbor had went over and knocked on the door, tried to get in, because that's not typical of Joan's behavior. She was pretty laid back. She would never do something so odd, right? At 29 years old, you're not going to play music full blast. The neighbor knew that this was strange behavior. So after attempting to get Joan to answer the door and Joan didn't, they called the police. When police arrived, they can see that a window in the front of Joan's apartment was wide open. The screen had been slit and it was open. They enter through the front door with lights out, but the metal music, heavy metal music, might I add, which kind of made me laugh because I don't know why that made me laugh. But the metal music was blaring. Using their flashlights, they make a deadly discovery. Blood was everywhere, from the walls to the furniture to the floor. It was a very brutal attack. There was a body of a woman covered in blood, and she was kind of slumped on the couch, kind of half on, half off the floor, right? She was partially dressed, and from the look of it, she seemed to have been sexually assaulted as well. Joan Burghart had been bludgeoned to death with over 37 blows.
Holy cow, that's hate right there.
Thank you. That's exactly what it was. She
And
had a
see,
shirt.
this is why death metal should be not allowed in the United States.
That's what it's cost, yeah, right?
It's cost, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Investigators were able to get some evidence, and they weren't able to lift any fingerprints. However, they did notice there was a visible, opaque white stain on her pants, which were on the ground. She had just a shirt on. She was undressed from the bottom half down. Now, fingers crossed, police officers are hoping what they think is semen, and they'll be able to pull some DNA from it. Officers are sure the break-in and the murder are connected because, I mean, really, what are the chances? Your apartment gets broken into and 4 days later you are brutally murdered, right? Mm-hmm. Investigators gather the sample. It does test positive for semen, and they run it through the system. And even though they have a viable DNA sample, it does not match anything in the system. So they know that this person has not done something similar like this in the past.
Right.
Or been caught, right?
Mm-hmm.
Police hit the ground running. They interview all of Joan's friends, all her family, and they learn that she was recently in a relationship with a man named Jackson Lee Kalin. Now, Jackson Lee Kalin was currently in the state hospital, and I mean the state hospital, like Malcolm Bliss. Anybody from St. Louis, right?
A mental institution.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The state mental hospital was nearby, and when I say nearby, I mean directly across the street from Joan's apartment. Police feel really strongly that this guy might have, the way the hospital worked with this particular guy and patients of his caliber, I guess, he could come and go as he pleased. He was inpatient. He did stay the night there, but he could leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the police really need to talk to him, and they need to talk to him fast. They know that the way Joan was killed was extremely violent, which they believe indicates some intimacy and anger towards her, not just a random attack. Police go to the hospital and they talk to Jackson. He tells officers he was actually in the hospital all evening and had never left the building. Police check the hospital sign-in and sign-out sheet to see if he was listed on there, right? And see if he had left the premises. He was not on the sheet, which indicated that he was, in fact, in the hospital all night. Now, you and I both know that doesn't mean a whole lot because there's ways around everything. Mm-hmm. So they asked to examine his hands, and there's not a scratch on them. Without much else to go on, they leave and they go back to Joan's apartment complex to talk to all the neighbors. Now, they know that that crime was so violent that the perpetrator would have had to have some sort of, cells or DNA under his fingernails, or at least scratches, because it was a brutal attack, and she really did fight for her life. So they go back, they talk to the apartment complex people, all her neighbors, residents, everything like that. There's really not much else they can add. She wasn't regularly seeing anybody. Her apartment wasn't like a rotating circle of friends, people in and out. She worked. She was 29 years old. So police officers just decide that they kind of got to sit back and wait, and hopefully something happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for Charlotte Schmoyer, the wait would not be that long. On June 9th, 1993, just a year later, the 15-year-old girl would wake up bright and early every morning and get ready to prepare her newspapers for her job of delivering papers to the neighborhood. Now, she'd been doing this for a little while. Charlotte would wake up at around 5 a.m., get all her papers organized, set them up, by delivery address, I'm sure. And then she would set out on her delivery route right before the sun would come up or right around that time so that everybody would get their newspaper for breakfast, right?
That seems to not be a very safe job for children.
And that's what I was thinking, and this is like 1993. So it's not like 1953, right? Not that it matters, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
As she was out making her deliveries, Charlotte would come across pure evil. As the neighbors woke up and were leaving for work, they make a troubling discovery. In between two parked cars out in front was her newspaper cart, and it was half full of newspapers and half not. So she had been delivering some. So they look around. They're thinking maybe she fell, hurt herself, whatever. Right? She was very dependable. She was also the little girl that always delivered their morning newspaper, so they knew who she was. They're looking around. She's nowhere to be found. So they immediately sense they need to call police. They call police. Police rush to the area. Regrettably, it would not be long before little Charlotte was discovered nearby. Her lifeless body had been placed in a wooded area right off the road, kind of in a little wooded area behind some houses. The killer was careful to place leaves and other natural debris on top of her as if he was concealing her. Charlotte had been raped and stabbed, and again, the killer left a little bit of DNA behind. It doesn't get a hit in the system. But they're able to put this one with that one, right? They kind of know that. He had stabbed her, and she's 15, right? He had stabbed her many, many times and then slit her throat. He had left behind a head hair and a pubic hair that did not belong to her, as well as some DNA from semen. At this point, the community of Allentown is worried. They're on high alert. There's a killer. He's out there. He's waiting. He's watching, and he's attacking. Very different victims, right? A little teenage girl on her paper route and another one he broke in her house. On June 17th, 1993, the home of John and Denise Cali was burglarized. They were out of town. They come home, and again, they sense something's not right. There were some things missing. In particular, the burglar had taken John's gun collection. John, pretty good guy, right? Mm-hmm. This couple had not been married very long at all. I think it was 10 months. They were a little bit older, but, they had not been together that long. So John rushes out and he buys some more guns. In particular, he buys one for Denise. John is out a lot at night entertaining clients, and, he takes people to dinner when they come into town and things like that for his job. And he's a little bit worried, especially since that little neighbor girl had been attacked just days after their break-in. You see, Jen, just 3 days after the Sam Cali break-in on June 20th, 1993, the same assailant, or they believed at this point, broke into a home. Police believe that the man had been watching the mother, right? And the mother had a young daughter who was 5 years old. Police kind of surmised that the man had been watching the house, watching the woman, and he had planned to break in and rape the woman. However, once he got inside, she had a sleepover friend. She had a guy. So when he broke in the house, she had a partner, and they were asleep. So instead, he brutally raped and choked the little 5-year-old. Now, the injuries he inflicted on the little girl indicated he thought he killed her. He didn't. Luckily, she survived. So because of that, John and Denise Cali are, they're worried. Their house got broken into. A couple days later, that happened to their neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets them all armed and ready to go. So now it's June 28th, 1993. It's around 9:30 at night when John and Denise Cali, they're at home. Denise is chilling, getting ready to go to bed. Well, John has a late night meeting with the client. He has to go take the client out. He tries to get Denise to come out with them, and she's like, you know what? I'm just tired. I'm just pooped. They had only been married about 10 months, like I said earlier. They also only lived blocks away from where Charlotte was abducted and murdered, and they were a neighbor to the little 5-year-old that had been raped and choked. The couple kiss goodbye, and Denise says, hey, it's fine. I'll be fine. I'm going to go to bed. I'm tired. So he leaves. She gets ready. She goes to bed. It's about 2:30 in the morning and John's making his way home after his meeting. He arrives at his house, and he is immediately thrown off guard. He sees police lights all over the place. So he's panicked. He jumps out of the car, and a police officer tells him that Denise is in the hospital. John's happy because he knows that, this means she's not dead, that she is alive. So he's like, I need to know what happened. And the police say, your wife has just been brutally attacked in her home. Now, later on, Denise would recall what happened. She would tell officers that she was asleep. And I'm such a scaredy cat. Like, this gives me the chills just thinking about it. Anyway, Denise would say that she was sound asleep in her home, and she knew John was going to be getting home pretty soon. So she heard some rustling about, kind of like near a closet area, kind of like near a window. So she's thinking that it's John, and he's, fumbling in the house. So she calls out to him, and he doesn't answer. So I was laughed because they haven't been married long enough for him to ignore her. So immediately she's worried, right?
I would
Especially
think so.
at night and with all of that.
With everything going on, you would think that he would totally announce his arrival to the home.
Yeah, exactly. So when he doesn't answer, she kind of is put on guard. She notices that there is a man walking into her bedroom, and she can see the glimmer of light hit the metal off of his knife. So she immediately knows, oh great, right?
Yeah.
Denise starts to pray out loud. He attacks her with the knife, and he's stabbing her, and she is screaming. She's thrashing. She is fighting for her life. As she's doing this, she knocks the knife from his hand. She makes a run for it. Good. She makes it all the way through the house and out the front door into the sidewalk before, bam, he pounces on her. He caught up to her. Now, this is in the front yard, mind you, right?
Mm-hmm.
As he knocks her to the ground, he starts punching her violently in the face. What a jerk, really? At this point, she's kind of coming in and out of consciousness. I'm sure you're thinking, is this really happening? Is this a dream? You know what I mean? Like, whatever. He's punching her on the front lawn, and she hears something. Well, she knows exactly what's about to happen. The man is unbuckling his pants, and he begins to rape her on the front lawn.
Jesus.
Right? During the entire attack, all of this, he never utters a word. He never says anything. Nothing. Not even like, shut up or stop it or whatever, right? Not one word. And he's calm.
Did you say he had a mask on or anything?
No, he does not. Because
he just thinks he's going to kill him and get away with it.
Exactly. However, just stay tuned. So the man's unbuckling his pants. He begins to rape her on the front lawn. Like I said, during the attack, he never says a word, which I just think is so weird. Just like not even a single word. You know what I mean? Like that's some sort of refined, like to be able to stay calm enough to do that and not, you know what I'm saying? Like we're psychopaths.
Especially if you're getting beaten.
Yeah. So sometime during the attack on the front lawn, the neighbor hears the scuffle, whatever, turns on the porch light, and it scares off the attacker. But with the light coming on, Denise is able to get a pretty good look at the man who was attacking her. And just like you said, he didn't have a mask on. He'd wear like a hoodie, dress in black, but that's it. He wouldn't cover his face. So police go to the hospital to question Denise, and she's able to provide a description of him, enough of one so much that they get a pretty good sketch of him. The sketch is released to the media and all the officers in the area. It's obvious at this time he lives around this area, or that's where he keeps striking, right?
It's a place that he's familiar with.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, Denise is released from the hospital, and she returns home to a fully equipped house with the finest of alarm systems. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be moving. Sorry.
I don't think I could live there either.
No. Plus, this guy, he knows that you got away. You know what I mean?
And I have a question for you. What scared him off was the light, somebody's porch light coming on. Do you keep your porch light on at night, or do you turn that off?
I turn it off. Do you?
We always keep our porch light on. Always.
That's good, because it lights up the house. It's actually smart.
It lights up the house, and so if anybody comes up, they'll be detoured from the light. You know, and our backyard has the lights that if you walk past them, they come on automatically.
Right. Those always scare me because our neighbors have those, and then when they go off, it scares me because I'm like, what's out there?
Right.
Yeah. So Denise gets home. She looks awful. I found this picture of her little face. It's black and blue, and she didn't even look the same. Like, it is so puffy. I mean, to stay in the hospital 2 weeks, you've sustained some pretty good injuries. Like, I had tests, and I was going home in 12 hours. You know what I mean? Just saying.
Well, she was stabbed.
Oh, stabbed and beat up about the
Right.
face. That's why her face looks so bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
The couple are really scared, but they're confident in the fact that he got away once, so no way is he going to be so dumb and so brazen to show up to their house and try to finish the job he started.
Nope, that's not how it works.
But he does, because he's an idiot.
Well, she saw him. He's left a witness.
Mm-hmm. So you'd think he'd kind of stop, but, this guy puts Denise on the back burner. He continues to continue his vicious reign and terror on Allenton. So it's July 14th, 1993. I think, what is this, like a month later? Yeah, it's about a month later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on July 14th, 1993, the killer breaks into a home. Now, inside he finds a 47-year-old named Jessica Jean Fortney. Jessica was staying with her daughter and her son-in-law. I don't know how long she was staying there. I don't know why, if she was staying for a long time or just came to visit. But
Babysitting, maybe. Or...
Yeah. The killer would severely beat and rape Jessica, so much so that her entire face was unrecognizable to her loved ones due to the swelling and the bruising. Just like the first case that we talked about, this was very similar. There was blood everywhere. It was all over the walls, all over the floor, all over the furniture. And just like the first victim, she was dressed the same way. She had a shirt on and no pants. But unlike the other times, there was a witness that he did not know was watching him. And it was Jean's granddaughter who had witnessed the entire event.
Oh, God, that's scarring.
Isn't
and I
it?
suppose the other two were gone, too? Like her daughter and son-in-law were gone?
Yeah, they weren't home. They weren't home. And that's why I think that he was watching them, right? So he's
Yeah.
watching, seeing that they leave or whatever. Kind of perplexes me that he didn't know the other lady with the daughter. She had a sleepover friend that night. Like, obviously he wasn't watching too close, but he probably had watched her for weeks and got used to her routine. And that was, you know what I mean?
Right. And she just happened to have a booty call that night. And
Yeah.
Or not a booty call, or a gentleman caller.
A
of
sleepover
some
friend.
sorts. Yeah.
A night visitor. The good
Which
kind.
is all good. Yeah.
Police are working that scene. They're pretty sure that this is the same killer involved in all of these cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting closer. They're getting so close, but they're just not, they're not getting them yet, right?
Now, did the last woman, did she die?
She did die. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a bloodbath. It was like the first one. The amount of blood loss, the stabbing, bad.
It's horrible.
Just so violent. You know what I mean? Like, and if you take, I know I'm a weakling, and so are you, so I can say this. I mean, I think most people, if you take something, and, this is so graphic, but it's illustrating it. To stab a body takes a lot of energy, and to do that like 40 times, that adrenaline and the
It's
pressure.
rage. That's rage.
It's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's only a few nights after Denise Cali had come home from the hospital, right? And this was a few nights past Jessica's brutal murder. Denise, along with John, are sound asleep in bed. Now they're thinking, our house is alarmed. We got guns. We're not leaving each other's side pretty much. There's no way this guy is going to do this again, right? Denise
I'm going to
wakes.
say probably not, since you're telling me this.
Thank you. She just stays after getting home from the hospital, mind you. They're sound asleep, and she wakes up to hear somebody breaking in. And they're breaking in the same damn window that the attacker broke in weeks ago, right? Same one. So she's stunned and shocked, but she's able to jar John. Wake up, somebody's breaking in, right?
Mm-hmm.
No sooner does she get the words out of her mouth, the home security alarm system goes haywire, goes off. John jumps out of bed with a gun in his hand, and he runs toward the noise. He sees the assailant making his way out of the window, and the man disappears into the darkness. He got scared off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he didn't think John was there. I don't know. Who knows?
He probably just wants to make sure she dies because he wants to finish what he started, right?
Exactly. Police are shocked. They cannot believe that this guy would attempt this again, and with John at home. Really, they're in disbelief. They decide that if this guy's going to be this crazy, they need to come up with a plan to snare him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's unstoppable. And who he attacks, how it runs the gamut, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're positive that this guy's going to show up again, and he's going to keep trying to get to Denise because he knows he left her to ID him, right? He doesn't know about that little girl at this point. They kept that under wraps. So police decide that they need to try something a little bit risky, and it's a little bit unusual, but with a hunch, they believe that this is going to nail this guy. What they're going to do is they're going to put a police officer in the house at night, in the dark, and he's simply going to sit there, watch the windows in the dark, and wait for this guy to come, right? With gun in hand, mind you. The officer that did this is just a little side note because I'd be like, are you kidding me? He was a newlywed. Now, could you imagine going, honey, I'm getting a new assignment and I got to go sit in this dark house and watch this guy that's already killed 3 people and attempted 4. And yeah, so I'll be home at 7 a.m. I'll see ya, right?
Yeah.
I was like that poor girl because he was
the life
young.
of a married woman. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a young rookie. He was a young guy. That's why he got stuck with this. So anyway, his name's Officer Brian Lewis, and he is placed within the house for a period of 2 weeks. They decide they're going to go at it for 14 days in a row and see what happens. After that, if the guy has not broken in again, that they'll have to revamp and come up with a new game plan.
Plan B. But you got to admit, he's got a gun. The guy's only got a knife. So his odds are better.
Right. And he's laying in wait. Like he's in the dark, and this ding dong. He's already broken in twice. He's... So the procedure would go as follows. Officer Lewis would arrive to their home. He'd do a sweep of the house, make sure everything was, good. Nobody was in there, all that stuff. John and Denise would go ahead and get ready for bed, like usual, making sure to turn off all the lights. They wanted it to convey to the killer that nothing's changed, right? Kind of like, hey, we're here, we're normal, we're doing what we want, right? Now, Officer Lewis would make sure all the doors and windows were locked, all except the 2 windows that were by each other that this ding-dong killer had broken into, right? So the one window in particular, but he left both of them unlocked. You see what I'm saying? Unlocked on purpose. Then Officer Lewis would just sit and wait in the dark for this killer to come and try to get in there and, hello, get the surprise of his life. Hello, hello, I'm a police officer waiting for you, and you lose, beep, 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 game over, right? So each night, John and Denise would go through their nightly routine while Officer Lewis, which I think is kind of funny too, because they're newlyweds still too, and so was Officer Lewis. So it's like nothing like having a new guy move in with you and you've been married for less than a year, but okay. So Officer Lewis comes in every night. He's prepped, brings a little book, little magazine with a little light, whatever, reading. Right. I just made that up because I would think, what are you going to do all night in the dark? I'd totally fall asleep, but he can't because he's a police officer. So night 1 turned into night 2, and then night 3, night 4. Nothing's happening, right? So it looks as if maybe they're wrong. Maybe the assailant wasn't going to break in. Maybe he was onto them. Maybe he had been watching them.
And knew this cop was there.
Yeah, like just,
Or maybe he just gave up and said, screw it, let's find somebody else.
Right. So they don't know, right? Mm-hmm. It's now July 13th, 1993. The couple and Officer Lewis did their nightly routine. And, well, since it's the 12th night of this, and he's in there for 14, right? It's the 12th night. They're getting pretty calm. They're getting pretty relaxed, thinking he's not going to do anything, right? Nothing's going to happen. He's only got 2 more nights of this duty until they refigure things and see what's going to happen. So Denise and John go to bed. All the windows and doors were locked, except for those 2 windows. Lewis takes a seat, and he watches the windows, just as he had done for the last 11 nights, right? At 1:20 in the morning, the noise came. The window was being jiggled. This is where, my heart would be racing. The adrenaline, could you imagine? I mean, you'd be like, oh, shit, here it comes. I'm up. It's my showtime, right? Mm-hmm. Officer Lewis readies himself in the dark. He's pointing the gun directly at the window. He's taking cover behind furniture because he wants the guy to get all the way in, right? Yep. He wants him all the way in the house before he can confront him because it would be easier to contain him. The man crawls into the window, and now he is fully inside the house. He was there to kill Denise and possibly John. I'm guessing he would have to kill John too, right?
He would.
Officer Lewis screams at him, "Police, stop." The man, whose face was uncovered, paused for a second and then reached for a gun. Officer Lewis fires, and the man dives into the next room. Sneaking up and ready to confront the man again, Officer Lewis steps out and fires and gets shot at as well. The man has a gun. So there's like a little gunfight going on between their kitchen and living room. Knowing he has to get out of this house and escape, Lewis steps out because he knows he's got to take care of this guy because this guy's going to try to escape. He confronted him with a gun. He's trying to get out of the house, right? Get away from the situation. So Officer Lewis fires a couple more shots. In fact, he unloaded his gun, shooting the remaining 4 shots. He's out of bullets. He's like, ooh,
hope he's a good shot. Shoot to kill at that point.
Right? He doesn't know if he struck the assailant or not. He's hoping. So he is kind of panicking a little bit. The officer is not really panicking, but, he knows from the movement that he's hearing that the killer is still alive. He's desperately trying to get out of the door. He's jiggling the door to get out. It's not unlatching. He's freaking out. So he tries a window. He can't get it open. So he literally dives through the kitchen window, which was, it was glass, leaves a bunch of his blood behind. Officer Lewis races to the window. He's gone. Just like a phantom.
So there's no backup? I mean, there's no cop sitting outside?
You'd think, right? Me and you need to be police officers, Jen.
You would think that they'd... I mean, what good is it to have one man?
I guess, though, that they're thinking, I don't know, a lot of, that's taking 2 officers off the force. Allenton, it's pretty big. It's a pretty big town. In fact, I think it's the 3rd biggest in PA.
Well, that might be, but come on, they could spare an extra for 14 nights. I mean, you just can't send
4 people whose life has gone
listen,
ruined.
Bill, we know that you're a rookie, but we've got this guy that's killed 3 women so far. You're going to do this solo. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, okay. Who am I to say? I've never had any law enforcement training.
Hoping that the attacker, may have been shot by Officer Lewis, or at the very least, they know he's injured because he left a ton of blood diving through that kitchen window. So they alert all the local hospitals and, hey, be on the lookout for this guy that's going to come in. He's either going to have gunshot wound or he's going to have some lacerations on his body, his arms, his hands at least. And if he does, if somebody shows up, we need to know ASAP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thankfully, it happened just like that. A man shows up. He's got severe injuries, including a gunshot wound. He's not real smart. Officer Lewis is called in to identify him. When Officer Lewis arrives, he knows right away it was him. But what he didn't know yet, and what you don't know yet, but I'm about to tell you, is going to shock your pants off. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The man's name was Harvey Miguel Robinson. At only 18 years old, he is one of the youngest American serial killers. At the time of his arrest, Harvey was still in high school. Could you imagine?
No.
Had a girlfriend and lived with his mom. From the outside, he was a normal teenage boy. But he was, at the time of his first murder, he was only 17. This is my son's age. Now, my son won't get out of bed, so this would never happen because he's lazy. But he's a senior in high school. Like, I can't imagine that. I'm flabbergasted, I tell you.
Unreal. I couldn't imagine having that drive to kill. I mean, it happens, but still.
So here's a little background for you. Harvey Miguel Robinson was born on December 6th, 1974. Harvey's father was an alcoholic, as we see so much, and he was very abusive towards young Harvey as well as Harvey's mother. Now, when Harvey was just 3 years old, his parents would divorce. But a little note here, violence runs in the family because in 1963, Harvey's father, who's also named Harvey, by the way, Harvey Sr., we'll call him that from now on, would serve jail time in 1963 for the brutal murder of his girlfriend, Marlene E. Perez, just 27 years old. He'd beaten her to death.
Oh, jeez.
Right? He beat her about the face a lot, too. I didn't add that, so I'm just saying it right now. But that's exactly what Harvey did, which I think is, I don't know, just weird. And he left at age 3. But they still, Harvey Jr. idolized his father, which, I mean, a lot of little boys do, but, I mean, he was not a nice man, obviously. In school, Harvey was a bright student. He excelled in sports. He did all kinds of sports, baseball, wrestling, cross country. He did really well. He did really well in school, too. He had won some awards for some essays he had written.
So he's a smart kid.
He's very smart. But you know what a lot of these killers are? They're either dumb as a rock or they're very, very smart. They're
sociopath. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Harvey's violent side appeared very early. At around age 9, he got his first charge, and the rap sheet started building, including burglary, among some other offenses that weren't so bad. Now, Harvey had a very violent temper, and
Really? Couldn't tell that at all.
At age 9, though. Like, you can kind of, you know what I mean? So he would let his temper take over, and it was almost like this rage that would take over, and he almost couldn't act with knowing what was right and what was wrong, what was acceptable behavior. Do you know what I'm saying? And we all kind of have seen those kids a little bit. His anger, combined with beginning to consume drugs and alcohol, led him way off the path, right? Off the path. Harvey's teachers were afraid of him. He would actually threaten them, and Harvey liked that. He liked that his teachers were scared of him. And he wasn't like a huge guy either. I mean, he was just like a normal-sized kid, but I don't know, like just the evil that you see in some people, even when it's that young, you know?
Yep.
So it was believed, or is believed, because they don't have reason to know otherwise, although he doesn't share much with officers, let's put it that way, with police. So it's believed his first victim was Joan Burkhart on August 9th, 1992, and that's the first victim we talked about, right?
God, he's not much older than we, or younger than we are.
Jen, he's only four years younger than us. Harvey's obviously a very brutal killer of women, but not just women, of children. Like, he thought he left that little 5-year-old angel to die. The wounds that were inflicted on her, she was supposed to die. And when he left, he thought she was dead, right? He would not talk to police. He wouldn't give them any information. But that was okay, because guess what? He didn't need to do any talking, because his DNA that they found all over those victims was proof positive that he was the guy that they were looking for. Investigators built a large case against Harvey with DNA evidence, as well as eyewitness accounts and physical evidence that they found at his house. Well, his mother's house. He's still living at home, remember? Serial killer that still lives with mom. And some other things that they had found at some of the crime sites. On December 6, 1993, Harvey Robinson went to trial where he was charged with the murder of Charlotte, Jessica, and Joan. It was his 19th birthday.
Oh, Jesus.
After a 4-week trial, 19-year-old Harvey Robinson is sentenced to a combined 97 years in prison, as well as 3 death sentences.
Good. He's old enough to get the death sentence. That's great.
But we're not done here. Of course not, right? So following the 2012 U.S. Supreme Court decision that deemed death sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional, Harvey's
17.
17 with the first one, though, and you go by what the age they committed it, not, you know.
Yeah, but some states you can charge 17-year-olds.
He was charged as an adult first, but then that changed things. Harvey's lawyers would appeal the death sentences. They were able to abolish 2 of the death sentences, but he still is serving 1, okay? So 1 death sentence still remains. Now, in an interesting footnote, in a newspaper article that appeared in the Morning Call, a judge had a unique request of Harvey Robinson. During one of these appeals and things like that he was up, and he did a ton of them, and we're going to talk about that in a second. After accepting an agreement that changed Harvey Robinson's death sentence for a murder he had carried out when he was 17 years old to just 35 years to life. So that was one of those death sentences that was commuted to 35 years to life. Lehigh County President Judge Edward D. Ryman had a question for, I guess, basically, which would be one of America's youngest serial killers. He had asked Robinson, have you ever considered donating your brain to science, to study for the criminal mind? Robinson, who is now 44 years old when this question was posed, I believe this was just like 2 years ago, he says, well, we'll see if it's consistent with my religion. Robinson is now a Muslim.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Another little side note, this newspaper, the one I just quoted, is the exact newspaper that little Charlotte was delivering when she was murdered. So I guess it's like a neighborhood newspaper. Now, the last part, I just want to bring this up because I was like, what? And I can't do math. You know that. It's no shock to anybody. So I'm not going to get into this much. But since Harvey was sentenced so young and he continues to sit on death row, appealing any and everything he can to this day, right? Because he's one of the youngest, he has cost taxpayers a lot of money. Now, I tried to add up as much as I could, and then I got frustrated because I was getting close to $1 million. But when it's all said and done, they estimate that he alone, one person, is going to cost the taxpayers between $1 and $3 million just for him. Now, this is all due to the appeals, court cost, attorney fees, and specialists called in to testify. In fact, they called one specialist in to testify on his behalf, $72,000. Another one, $53,000 to testify. That's like a day's work. I mean, you got to do some research on the side, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Is this court-appointed attorneys?
Well, it's one that they hired. That I guess that the state pulled in as a,
Court-appointed, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, an inmate with a life sentence is going to cost, meaning that they serve their whole life in prison, is going to cost around $500,000. But all of that, those details are according to the National Coalition to Abolish Death Penalty, of course. But you kind of forget that. Also, because Harvey has been in since he's 19, and he is, 46-ish now, that's a long time. And I did just this morning look up, as far as I could find, he had no execution date, no end date. So it's kind of like he still
has so many appeals that they can't even set a date for execution.
God, he's done so many. I mean, this was 1993. It's 2020. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, each one, I would think each death sentence would get its own set of appeals and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, right. So that is the case of Harvey Robinson. And
wow.
17, and brutal. And like, your kid, you kind of, when they're doing something shady, right? What about the blood? I mean, some of these things, it was gruesome. It wasn't just like a stab, blood everywhere. Where's his clothes? Who washes his clothes?
His mother might be afraid of him, so his mother's not going to say anything.
I guess, but I'd secretly
who knows what? Well, but who knows what his?
He had a girlfriend though, so you have this whole day thing going. I'm a high school senior. His teachers were afraid of him. He was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, and definitely had violence and things like that. But a lot of kids have that. It doesn't mean they become a serial killer at age 17. You know what I mean? They usually just can't hold a job because they have problems with authority. But yeah.
Wow. No, I bet you his mom was afraid of him. I bet you his girlfriend was afraid of him.
And just the fact that he watches them, to me, that's scary. I mean, to have a house broken into, but then to know this person was watching him? Relentless. Went after Denise 3 times? You kidding me?
Well, she couldn't have any survivors.
Yeah, but you'd think, my God, you got away with it. Let it go. Let it go, buddy.
Oh, you think somebody like that's going to let it go?
No, but he needs to.
He would have been better off. He would have lived to kill again, but his ego got to him. Mm-hmm. Ego usually brings you down.
So that is that.
Unreal.
That is horrible.
Unreal. I couldn't imagine having a kid that's...
That's why I said, you kind of know when they're being...
anger.
You have to know. There's always signs. We talk about that all the time. And I mean, at 9, he's getting, burglary, little therapy, a little something, you know what I mean? There are signs. There's always signs.
Yeah, but sometimes you just don't want to see it. You don't want to think your kid's doing that.
I do. I always think, you just never know about people.
Unreal. Well, I'm glad he's caught, and I hope his appeals run out soon.
Right?
That's all you can say. Costing the poor people of Pennsylvania a shit ton of money.
One of his attorneys alone, just on him, turned in a bill for $200,000, and that was for her bill. And that didn't account the research and the homework hours, which she charged $75 per hour. That was just the flat rate to hire me.
Unreal.
Could
you marry a defense attorney?
Yeah. Is he cute? Yeah. Yes, because I think that you got to look at, like you said earlier, it's their job. That's what they do. And I think a lot of times they don't. Part of their job is I don't want to know if you did it or not. And what they're fight for is the upholding the law. Did you get convicted correctly? Even if the person did it and you think they did it, the way that they went about convicting them was wrong. It's not, I always think about, as a prosecutor, would I prefer to put somebody away? Because you're fighting to prosecute them. Maybe during the course of it, you know that they didn't do it, but that's still your job. You're fighting for the state. You're fighting for them to be put away versus the defense. Whereas maybe during the course of it, you find out they did do it, but yet you got to come up with why it could be conveyed that they didn't do it. So it's on both sides. You know what I mean?
I know, but the defense attorneys get more money for it.
Heck
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I just don't know if my conscience would let me sleep next to somebody that would let baby killers go or to fight away. You know what I mean? That's where I would get.
But I think they're practicing law. That's the thing. So it's not so much letting them get away with it as it is. I mean, my favorite thing ever is Robert Kardashian's face when they said O.J. Simpson wasn't found not guilty. His whole face was like, are you kidding? Like if flies went in his mouth dropped open so wide. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's more like practicing the law to the extent to make sure they get a fair trial. But that's the thing. Like me, I'm too wish-washy. But then you think too, like doing this podcast and teaching that murder class I have, and we said this the other day on Get Vocal. If you're a minority, if you're poor, or you're uneducated, you're effed. I mean, you are effed. But that doesn't necessarily mean you did it.
Well, to get a fair trial, you'd have to hire a very good lawyer, which costs lots and lots of money.
Which I could not do, but they could. That's my point. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's the unfair part about the U.S. justice system. Money buys freedom, and that's the truth. That's my PSA and TED Talk, and I'm going to get off the soapbox right now, but yeah. So it's just,
sad news. Mm-hmm. This week, our promo is from our friends at Scry Podcast. Very creepy story with your host, The Seer. Check out their podcast.
That sounds pretty good. Remember, good folks out there, hope you're doing okay, staying safe and being healthy and getting a lot of stuff done. But until then, remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Today's episode was researched and written by me, Cam. For more information about this episode, as well as all the sources I used, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by hosts Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from October Pod VHS. Our True Crime Podcast is executive produced by Nico Vertesi and Dick Vane. Make sure to like and subscribe to Our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter at Our True Crime Pod. You can email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. If you really like the show, make sure to check out our Patreon at Our True Crime Podcast. Our True Crime Podcast is an OTC production.
Welcome to Scry, a podcast that journeys beyond the veil that separates our realm from that of the shadows.
With this horrific grin on her face, and then started twisting her head.
Scry features true tales of ghosts, demons, and dark entities as shared by those who experience them.
Next to her was the reflection of someone else.
With tensions heightened through an eerie score and atmosphere-building sound effects.
You are not supposed to see me.
Stare into the obsidian mirror at scrypod.com or subscribe to Scry through your favorite podcast app.
Fake day. I get you. I was just wondering because, not that it matters, not that, whatever. I digress. I'm not going to say anything else.
Nothing really matters.
It really doesn't. If I shower and brushing my teeth every day, it's pretty good, right?
Yep.
All right,
Dinger me.
Really? You want me to?
Dinger it. Come on. I need some excitement here.
Was successfully hidden from the British during the American Revolutionary War.
Wow, that's cool.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I didn't either, but I figured you might because he's.
All I know is that's where Tom Cruise used to wrestle.
Oh yeah,
in that one movie. What was that movie? Wasn't it Tom Cruise or was that Matthew Modine?
Oh, Matthew Modine. Yeah. Vision Quest, sister.
Vision Quest.
I thought you were talking about Risky Business, and that would be Princeton, New Jersey, when he wanted to do that. But it's a whole nother story. Investigators, they gather some evidence. Sorry about that.
Get it out. Get it out.
Hairball. Investigators run the sample, and it is semen. It appears that they suspect that he masturbated on her pants. Right?
Just
Just weird, right? People
No,
are
I'm laughing
weird.
how you had to mumble that. You're a 50-year-old
Whisper?
woman and you had to say, masturbated.
Because I'm a lady, Jen.
Okay.
Damn it. Right, that she witnessed it.
Did you want to fix your grammar?
What did I say?
Not? He wasn't doing too good. He wasn't doing very well.
He wasn't doing too good, Jen. He's a bad guy.
Okay.
He ain't right. He ain't right. I'm kidding.
You can keep your bad grammar. That's fine.
Well, I added that. That's why. So when I add
Okay.
stuff, I'm not thinking about it. Hold on, I'll say it again.
It doesn't matter to me. You're the English teacher.
Barely. Let's be honest. All right, here we go.
Okay. I have a local Jehovah's Witness lady. She's been coming to my house for years. My oldest daughter's 14 now. She's been coming since she was 2, I guess. And she comes once a month, and she drops off their little pamphlet, The Watchtower. Mm-hmm. And she kind of tells me a little bit what the Watchtower pamphlet is about, and then she does wants to do a prayer and all that kind of stuff. And
that is just so you, because if anybody knows you, of course you small talk with the person that comes to your door. And
well, here's the deal. Their
you guys
religion
have talked about other religions, which I love, because I don't know, that's just so you. That's so opening of you.
Well, I have questions about the religion. I'm open to any religion. I think it's fascinating. I, of course, am not very religious, but I love religion in general. But I figure her religion wants her to go out and prophetize, or to go out and talk about her religion. And I feel that I'm helping her meet that quota, and she feels that she's, helping me see Jesus through her eyes.
That's so you, though. That is so Jen.
It's not. I mean, she's a wonderful lady. She's never pushed the religion on me. She always invites me to the Easter get-togethers that they have. I mean, she's super nice. Her name's Chris. I really like her.
That's you, though. That's adorable.
But I mean, she's just doing what she's supposed to do, right? And it's going to be 3 minutes of my time. That's it.
It's just
that's all it is.
Admirable trait of yours. And Jen, anybody listening, Jen gets this look in her eye, and it's like, I call it, and I do this because I know a couple of people, I call it the double Dutch, double Dutch jump rope, where you're looking at the rope and you're gauging, when can I jump in, right? Mm-hmm. And that Jennifer gets that double Dutch look. She's got the look, and I'll look at her and I'll go, no, Jen, no. And she'll be like, what? I'm like, I know, you're about to go talk to that person. Stop it. We got to go. Because that's you.
Everybody has a story. Everybody has something interesting to share. And I love to talk to people, and I like to try to find that story.
I think you're the only person ever, though, that small talks to the people that come to the door. That's all.